The Michael Waddell podcast is presented by Spandau Arms in partnership with Folds of Honor and Spartan Magnaswitch System.
Because inside every warrior, had a black wolf and a white wolf that live inside of you, and you're a product of which one you feed. You're going to war, you're feeding the black wolf. The white wolf is for loving your family and doing that type of stuff.
Colonel, we're gonna start this off. Colonel Nichols, and I'm gonna do something because you're not this guy, but I didn't do it the last time we sat down and talked because you're too humble. But I think sometimes people need to know who we're talking to, and many people already know you. But I just want to read a little bit of your bio. Colonel Nick Nichols, decorated U.S. Air Force pilot, F-16 pilot. You spent 7 combat tours serving in both Afghanistan and Iraq. You also had the privilege of serving in a group as a group commander, leading almost 500 or did 500 airmen there. You led them and responsible for over $1 billion in military assets. So obviously, you've had a hell of a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. But then, even more importantly, not only was you an F-16 pilot, but your dad, he was also a Vietnam veteran.
That's right.
And he was an Air Force pilot.
Yep.
So you fell right into the shoes with him. And now, obviously, you've been a huge ambassador. You're the president of the Folds of Honor. And so, obviously, you're a man of Christ. You're a great dude. And in everything that we see out there in the world that's crazy, and all the movies that we see that obviously are fiction, I mean, literally, your life is like a real Tom Cruise movie. I mean, it seems to me.
I don't know if I'm as cool as Tom Cruise, but yeah, you know, what's so funny is I think maybe it was the last couple of times I was here, we talked about like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
You know, like, and people ask me that all the time, like, did you like the movie? And I did like the movie. And the reason why is because I really thought Tom Cruise kind of kept it like old school, like cool,
Yeah.
like an ode to like me. I'm 58 years old and stuff like that. Not these, you know, new young guns all coming up and stuff right now, but that part of it was cool. So, man, I led a blessed life, right? I mean, 30 years flying the jet of my dream, being able to go do what my dad did, and kind of, in a sense, being able to kind of finish what he wasn't able to do. Waddy, I wouldn't trade that for the world, man. I mean, it was an awesome life.
Now, too, it was obviously your decision to be an Air Force pilot or to fly F-16s. Was that something that really stemmed from your father? Like, did you think of him immediately when you set that goal to be a pilot?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think in a lot of senses, you know, especially for most guys, you know, they looked at their daddy as their hero, right? And stuff like that, wanted to be like him. You know, they're the ones that probably taught him how to hunt and do all that other stuff. But I remember at a young age, just going to that flight line with my dad and just being able to stand out there, like right next to the flight line and watching those F4s take off. And just like how it just shakes you to your core. I mean, you can just you can't even feel your heart beating anymore. And just that power. And man, it was so cool. And then just watching him and his interaction with his bros, I was like, that's what I want. Because a little bit of it is, yeah, flying the F-16 is amazing, but it's kind of like being in a football locker room for the rest of your life with your bros. I mean, you're just tight, and kind of everything goes, right? Everybody makes fun of everybody, but at the end of the day, y'all love each other and take care of each other. And that was a wildly attractive environment for me.
Right. And when it comes to the technology, you're talking about that F4 to F-16, was there a noticeable difference? Did it change that much?
It did change that much. So my dad called the F4 the flying brick. He said it was proof positive that you put enough horsepower on something, you can get it airborne, right? The F-16, you know, we called it was the sexy jet, man. I mean, that thing is just sleek and smooth, single engine, had more thrust than weight, which means you could go straight vertical and accelerate at the same time. The thing was like flying a rocket ship. It was unbelievable. The seats kind of recline back just a little bit. It's got a side stick on it and stuff. And when you just sit in that thing, you feel like, you know, you're kind of in your armchair, sort of reclined, watching TV, and it just feels good.
Is it like, I've always wondered, like when you're in a combat mission, and obviously you're in an F-16, and that technology and that horsepower under you, does it still feel like a video game, or is it a different feeling? Does it almost feel like you're almost in the simulator? Is it take on its whole life when you're in, a hot zone in Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah, the one thing that you'll never get in a simulator, right, is the smell, the feeling, the G's on the aircraft is hot, sweating, and all the things that are going on. The radio real time going off, people screaming for help, that type of stuff. Those are the things that you can, employ weapons in the simulator and practice those type of things and make sure. I mean, we'd always make sure that we're tight. I mean, we're going, by the numbers, how to do things, because when you get in the heat of combat, I mean, that stuff needs to be muscle memory at that point, because people's lives are counting on you. They don't need me thinking 30 seconds how to do something. But no, nothing truly simulates combat other than being in combat, because, at the end of the day, the enemy gets the boat, right? So you could never predict exactly what was going to happen in those dynamic environments like that. Combat is the true test.
God, I can't imagine. And on a typical mission, like and you were in charge, I'm assuming, of most all of this. When you say, okay, there's a call, and obviously I'm military ignorant when it comes to this, but maybe it's 4 jets that go up. What's the typical setup? Is obviously you got a machine gun on every plane. Do you have a certain amount of missiles? Is all the jets kind of set up the same, or is it a little different as far as what's on those?
For the most part, yeah, the F-16s, we were all set up with a similar payload on it. So we had, a 20 millimeter Gatling gun with 510 rounds of HEI. And think of HEI as basically like little grenades going off when it hits the ground and stuff.
So they hit and they explode.
They hit and they explode. Yeah. Okay. So they're definitely a crowd pleaser. And then, in terms of the weapons that we would have on board, it would depend upon the environment. Most of the time it was a 500-pound weapon, either laser guided or GPS guided weapons. And we usually carried 4 of those. Wow. And we would typically, in a close air support scenario, which means that we're the guys overhead, executing strikes on the enemy, getting called in, cleared hot, doing all that other stuff. The 500-pound weapon was a little more surgical than, a typical like a 2,000-pound bomb or something like that. I mean, that's a big boom. 500 pounds, you still got 500 pounds of Triton all going off on the ground and stuff. So it makes a big boom. But this way we could be a little bit more discreet in the way that we were dropping the weapons, especially if we were in a situation that was danger close. Danger close meaning you had friendlies within 300 feet of where you were dropping that bomb.
So it's got to be surgical.
It's got to be surgical, and you have got to be on point. I mean, there's no Kentucky windage here. There's no, hey, a little left, little right, or anything like that. I mean, you got to be,
How nerve-wracking is that? Knowing you've got who you're there to save or protect within 300 feet.
Oh, exactly. I mean, yeah, the intensity of the moment. I mean, your adrenaline's going and stuff like that, but you're so hyper-focused. And there was never a doubt in my mind when, this thumb was the final vote. Okay, when it hits that red pickle button and the bombs come off, I was always 100% sure I knew where these bombs were going, because also in the back of my mind, I mean, the last thing you want to do as a fighter pilot is be responsible for taking out Americans. Okay, I wanted to turn the bad guys into pink mist, get the brothers home, and make that happen. Yeah, it could be nerve-wracking sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of radio chatter going on. People, stuff. I mean, there's everything. Airplanes all over the place, stuff like that. A lot of movement on the ground. Always keeping in mind, too, there was always rules of engagement, too. And
so stuff. Would be a rules of... Is that a NATO thing, or is that a?
Yeah, it was. Honestly, it depended upon who was in office at the time. I'll keep it real and stuff like that. And you just had to be careful. Like, hey, how close is this building? Can we cause collateral damage here? This type of stuff and stuff. Quite honestly, as a fighter pilot, you do want to be mindful of. I don't want innocent civilians getting hurt or their stuff or anything like that. But there was just this constant, like, encyclopedia going through your brain as you were doing this thing. And then when it gets to the heat of the moment, when you get your launch cue and you're like 3, 2, 1, bombs away. After you hit that button, it's game on, man. I mean, you have to you can't undo that decision. The bombs are going to hit the ground, and gravity is gravity, and they're not going to float back up.
Now on some of those big bombs, would you ever be in a situation where you release that button and you got to, I mean, I'm talking about and gas it, son, to get out of there? Or is it more surgical from high above, or would you be in pretty close proximity in a lot of times?
When typically we're dropping bombs, we'd be, call it altitudes of, depending upon the weather and stuff like that, you could be anywhere from 10 to call it 20,000 feet in the air. And that's where we wanted to be, because a lot of times we didn't want the enemy to hear us. Okay, F-16 is loud. So if we can get up high, they have no idea we're there. Okay, so we can take our time, make sure, we've got the friendlies, we've got these guys, unless it's a troops in contact where guys are actually getting shot at the time. If we had to do something quick, then we can get down and get amongst them and get that 20 millimeter Gatling gun going and
treetop, basically.
Yeah, so you're recovering at altitudes around 75 feet above the ground.
Oh my God! So you're all. I mean, I feel like I've hunted in deer stands in Georgia, nearly that tall, and you're going subsonic, just smoking by.
Yep. And so that's a situation where you're talking about right there that, you strafe and you got to pull some G's to get out of there and stuff like that to avoid, obviously hitting the ground and then spinning around and getting out of there because your number 2 guy was coming in right behind you to clean up.
So basically, what would be your typical grid? Would it be like, obviously, you picture this squadron, and most of us, including myself, all I've got to go by is what I've seen on the movies. And I've watched, even when I'm watching like the World War II documentaries. I just watched an amazing documentary on Vietnam, and you just assume that you just feel like it's just everybody going in at once, but I'm sure it's way more strategic to where you're coming to do one job, then the backups. I mean, it's almost like no different than cleaning a building, except you're doing it from above.
Yeah, and so and it's
or clearing a building. I should say.
And it's great to point back to movies and stuff like that for reference. So, for us with close air support, it was very tactical. It was very surgical. Okay, so there's me and my wingman is typically it. You probably have a couple of reconnaissance.
So
two planes. You probably have a couple of reconnaissance airplanes and stuff like that. If you knew it was something that you were going to be there for a while, you were radioed back in for backup. Okay, because you knew if you had to go land and obviously reload and do that type of stuff, it was going to take a while. So you wanted to make sure a couple of the other bros got there to cover down on you. Now, if there was another like large force war, people might think in their mind like a Russia or a China scenario and stuff like that. Oh yeah, it could be game on, man. I mean, you're talking like, we would practice. I've practiced leading 40, 60 ship packages.
Holy, so you would practice or be combat ready for 40 planes.
Absolutely.
In air.
Absolutely.
With a mission.
Yep. Combination of, air-to-air fighting your way in to go strike a target and then having to fight your way back out.
That is just, I mean, and you see that. And one thing I've always wondered in modern warfare is like when you think of Top Gun was the best example, it was always these dogfights.
Yep.
But then I wonder is that even something that's going to happen, or could that still happen to where you truly have another force of the enemy? They got their airplanes out there. So as you're trying to hit your target, you're having to fight off, or maybe you're launched to fight off this squadron of planes that's coming to potentially do the good guys, in this case, America, bad. So obviously the dogfight is still potentially real.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, you look at it now, especially with technology and stuff. And again, I'm 7 years removed, so I'm sure that, where my mind was 7 years ago, it's even advanced, that much more since then. But absolutely, I mean, there could absolutely be a scenario with, a combination of, stealth and defensive measures and all this other stuff. You go, okay, we were trying to kill each other 20 miles apart, and then all of a sudden you pass high speed 500 feet away from each other. Then it's like, it's that old school kind of crack your neck. It's game on, man. It's me versus you. Let's see how it goes.
We're going to stop for a quick break, but please don't go anywhere. We got so much to come.
Spandau Arms was founded with a simple idea. The best part of hunting isn't the gear, it's the memories. From the first rooster rise of the season in the tall grass to the last second opportunity on the target buck as sunset closes in. Spandau believes firearms should be built to perform, priced to be accessible, and designed to become an essential piece of your hunting story. Their lineup includes field-ready shotguns and precision-driven rifles built for hunters, competitors, and recreational shooters who know that quality and dependability matter more than the hype. Born from the experience of American hunters and crafted by generations of gunmakers, each Spandau firearm is built for real-world performance in the moments that matter. A wingman flies close with unwavering dedication. At Folds of Honor, a wingman stands with families of America's fallen or disabled heroes. The burial flag given to their grieving family is folded 13 times. As a wingman, your $13 monthly donation provides scholarships to their spouses and children. 13 folds, $13. Become a wingman. Join today at foldsofhonor.org.
I just watched the other day, I think it's on Netflix, that whole, I think it's, I forget what it's called, or it's not Untold, it's maybe Turning Point, I think it is. Turning Point, it's a documentary on Vietnam. And one thing that blew my mind is I didn't realize, I always figured that in war or in theater, it's almost like, I feel like it's like a UFC bout, like, okay, here's the two guys, you're fighting it out, and victor comes to the one who basically wins or defeated. But it seems like they were a lot, especially in Vietnam, a lot of red tape, rules of engagement, or don't shoot unless you've been shot at. And it seems like in that case, I just wondered, did a lot of that happen in Iraq and Afghanistan, or was it you think that's two different ways of going about it? Was it different, you think?
I think, the wars were definitely different. I mean, in terms of, did close air support happen in Vietnam? Absolutely. Okay. It happened all the time and stuff. But it was a more constant, larger scale ongoing in terms of an air battle. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because you were still getting shot at by surface to air missiles. You were still having enemy aircraft, and they were trying to shoot you down and that type of stuff. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm really talking like post 9/11 time frame and stuff, that was kind of what we would call clean airspace. Okay, so there weren't enemy aircraft, there weren't surface to air missiles. Our greatest dangers, as a fighter pilot, were bad weather, which the weather in Iraq and Afghanistan could be terrible. And then especially when you're operating on the Afghan-Paki border, which is like, it's like the mountains in Colorado up there and stuff. And so, you get bad.
The geography itself.
Yeah. And so that was the stuff that was, most critical to us, going back and looking at, like, my dad, who did 2 tours in Vietnam and stuff, and hearing their stories and all the things that happened and stuff. Man, those guys are heroes. Can you imagine sitting there, you're fighting a war. Okay. Mm-hmm. When we came home, whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan, man, they'd have the streets lined with flags and all that other stuff. I can remember my old man. I still remember the story. There's significant moments in your life. You remember something, right? I remember my dad talking about, he had come home because he left for his first tour in Vietnam, and I wasn't even a year old yet. I was like 6 months old. This was in 1967. Mm-hmm. And came home in uniform and got spit on coming out of the airport and stuff. Like, can you imagine that happening today? Unbelievable.
I can't.
Right?
Matter of fact, I don't know that if I saw that, I wouldn't just go crazy.
Oh, I might lose it, man.
I know I would.
Just sit there like, y'all can hate the war, don't hate the warrior, right? We're just like, we're not involved in the politics or any of this other stuff. These are just good men who raised their right hand and said, you know what, I'll go do that.
Right. I'll serve my country.
I'll serve my country.
Obviously, you're right. Your military, who signs up to be in the military to fight for their country, you obey commands.
That's right.
You're not in charge of the government and the politics. And obviously, we can look back in every campaign and look at situations which become part of that PSD, the post-war of dealing with that, because you wonder, what was I there for? And I watched, that's one thing I remember watching when I watched that Vietnam documentary, and I'm thinking, that would have to be terrible to come home to that after having to do your job, after commands were given, you do your job, and then you get treated that way by many of the American public that's spitting on you.
Yep.
And then you still are questioning, what was I really there for? Then you got to deal with what was done, where you were victorious in situations. I can't imagine that heavy load and what those soldiers went through. All soldiers, even modern day, but that Vietnam era was a very tough thing to decipher. And I can't imagine. I see a Vietnam vet, man, and I just want to go hug them. I really do. I catch myself wanting to do that.
For sure. And, in every public speaking engagement I have, I always single out our Vietnam and Korean veterans. And back to a point that you made earlier, like, our Vietnam War veterans, looking back, several decades now and like going, was it worth it? And at the end of the day, what I tell my fellow warriors and brothers is this, man, I go, yeah, it was. And here's why. We went, because our nation called us to do it. The decision-making after that and everything else that happens. I mean, look how quickly we gave Afghanistan back. Okay.
Yeah.
That happened in about 36 hours, right? And you could sit there and look at that and go, was it worth it? Was it worth it for me to watch these men who I knew died, watching those flag-draped coffins come home? Man, they were there fighting with their brothers. They were there, they, like I said, they raised their right hand and they went for the right reasons to do the right thing. And they did. And there was a lot of lives that were saved. There was good that happened in all of these things. You can't, in hindsight, look back and go, oh man, we shouldn't have done any of that, because you can't control the past from the future. I mean, you just have to look back on it now and just go, you know what? I served with honor. I served with integrity. I did my best and stuff. And, where the political dust falls, man, just let it fall. That ain't your problem.
It's kind of on them. It's on those crooked politicians if there are any decisions made that were for political influence, which 100% now it's been proven. I'm sure there were.
Sure.
I'm sure there were tons of it. It's pretty well documented. Obviously, if you look back in that era versus now, every one of us have a lot more opportunity to be more informed. But yeah, you're right. There were some similar eerie reminders. I remember thinking that because I've always been just really dug into a lot of the history of a lot of the wars and the conflicts. And I mean, and now the documentaries, how they got to World War II, you can go back and see it in color. You can see those campaigns. Oh, unbelievable. And from not only the ground forces to the air to Midway, the Battle of Midway, they got a lot of that captured on that old 16 millimeter film, I think it was.
Yep. Now
they went back and obviously they've edited in the audio, put it in color. And dude, when you watch it, it's like a Spielberg movie now. And so I think, back then though, you only heard what the media was saying. So it was easy to construct whatever the statement was, or the narrative was easy to talk about. And to a degree that was happening in Vietnam. I think nowadays it's turning to where whatever we're in, we're going to understand a little bit more. But now I'm starting to get like Sean Ryan. I listen to this podcast a lot. Man, what is real anymore? It's so crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and especially because I can remember, during back in 91, during the first Gulf War and stuff, and that was really where, and they had this a little bit in Vietnam, but where you really had a lot of media embedded. So you were getting real time what was going on. I remember back, because I was in pilot training at the time, and we were all just chomping at the bit, man. Just
I was ready.
Come on, just wait 6 more months. I'll be ready to go. And, but just being glued to the TV and just watching it, because it was fascinating, because you were seeing things happen in real time, and you could kind of like make an assessment for yourself and stuff. And then, it was the first time in a long time, the country had to watch a war.
That's exactly right. And that particular, you're right, 91 is when I graduated high school. And I remember watching that every night. It was like, the only thing I remember that was similar was Dukes of Hazzard. I used to watch that on Friday nights, man. But I remember just glued. It was the first time that we had real time that was fed to us. And, prior to that, you would see clips from Vietnam. But there you were seeing kind of real time what was happening. I can't imagine being a trained, fighter pilot, or in that case, an Army Ranger or Navy SEAL or Delta Force, and seeing that, getting ready to go, because you could get an idea of what you're about to get into. The way the terrain looked like. I'm sure you guys sat around and was studying stuff and figuring out how to get through those mountains. It was all in real time,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, it sets but it gives you a cool mindset, right? And that was a huge motivator for me in pilot training and stuff, because you're sitting there looking at it, because I'm like going, man, I didn't have plan B, Waddy. I'm either fighter pilot or bust, man. I'm like, Lord, just take me off this earth if this doesn't work out for me, because I didn't want to go do anything else. That was a massive motivator for me, looking at that, just going, man, I want to do that. I want to be those guys.
Right.
I want to go do that. I want to serve my country that way. And yeah, so it was good to have that visual and that reminder.
Yes. I've often wondered too, when you're young, you're training, you become a bona fide warrior Air Force pilot. At that point, and I would assume, and I'm assuming the same answer would be the same, whether you're a Navy SEAL, whether you're a Ranger, whether you're an infantry. Are you ready? I mean, are you ready? So when you're ready for that command, you're wanting to use your skill set of what you can do. You're wanting to see what not that you're praying for conflict, but at the same time, it's not like, is it as dreaded as what we would think it would be? Or is it like an anxious, exciting moment?
That's
what
a
is
good way
that?
to describe it, like an anxious, exciting moment. I know that, and I was just talking about this the other day at a keynote speech I was given, and I go back through the years. Like my first combat deployment was in 1996. Okay, when we were, when we were defending the southern and northern no-fly zones in Iraq, kind of keeping Saddam Hussein at bay in the center of the country and stuff like that. And the wars drastically changed. But back to your point, like that first moment where you're like, you're going from, okay, this ain't training anymore and stuff. Probably the hardest thing to do initially. It actually got harder as I got older. I remember I'm stationed in Misawa Air Base, Japan. Okay, I'm young, got my very young wife and 2 kids. The oldest one is 2, and the other one is like 2 months, and I'm leaving and stuff. You're so full in your mind of piss and vinegar and stuff like that. You're just chomping at the bit, man. I got to go prove myself and stuff like that, that you lose a little bit of sight of the moment with your kids and stuff like that and stuff, because I was so hyper focused on that. Not that it wasn't tough to say goodbye and stuff like that, but man, that aspect of it, it got harder and harder and harder every time you went. And the difference between combat deployment number 1 and number 7 was night and day. I mean, because I can remember in 2013, it's 1:00 in the morning, and my oldest daughter at the time is 19 years old. So they range from about 19 to 7, my 3 kids. And we're sitting there kind of, hugging and kissing and saying goodbyes and stuff like that. And my 6th combat tour was supposed to be my last, okay? And I told my wife that. And so number 7 comes along, and of course the bros are like, brother, we need you. And so you just go. And the neat thing, I'm very fortunate to have the wife that I have. We've been married almost 36 years now. I never asked her if it was okay. It just always was. And so I went. And I remember that night, like vividly, and I remember like literally hugging on my kids, kissing my wife. We never said goodbye. We always said, I'll see you later, because goodbye was final. See you later is hopeful. Go out to the truck, fill my bags in the truck, and you're sitting there processing yourself just a little bit, right? Because inside every warrior, and I go back to one of my favorite Cody Jinks songs, is like you got a black wolf and a white wolf that live inside of you, and you're a product of which one you feed. You're going to war, you're feeding the black wolf. The white wolf is for loving your family and doing that type of stuff.
Different kind of defense, right?
Yeah, it's not like you're removing yourself from your family mentally and stuff like that, but I knew in my heart to do good by them and to do good by the men, that 18-year-old kid on the ground with a rifle who was depending on me to be on my game, that black wolf had to be fed, okay? And you got to go. It's 1:00 in the morning, put your truck in reverse, suck it up, and let's go to war. That was it.
That's something I don't think a lot of civilians, we sit back and watch all this stuff, but the mentality of what y'all go through and also what you're going to protect. So in many cases, when y'all dialing up it's support so many times, So many times it goes hand in hand with a combat force that's coming into this city or this hot area
Yep.
or this encampment. Maybe you found the bad guy. So you're there for support. And so basically your number one job is to basically protect this 18-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid that's trained for a mission, but his boots are on the ground while y'all flying above. That happens. Is that a lot of the times?
That was 90% of the mission over there. Sometimes, I mean, there'd be occasion where you would have what we would call a pre-planned target. Hey, we need to take out this radio facility, or we need to do something.
Just
like
rock
that.
and roll, yeah.
But the game there for us, and I don't say game to take it lightly, but to be in the game, it was coming in. You have troops in contact, which means they're fighting. Somebody's shooting at them, and they're shooting back, and that type of stuff. And you were there to make sure that the enemy understood. They're like, hey, man, this war, it's not fair any longer and stuff. And we will bring all the hate that we can bring to make sure that those kids go home.
Yes. Speaking of that, again, going back and forth between, say, the conflict in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Vietnam. Obviously, those are the most Saudi Arabia, but obviously Saudi Arabia was over pretty. We was able to kind of solidify victory there. As a matter of fact, I went over in 2011. Armed Forces Entertainment had us over there. Myself, Ryan Kolesko, at the time, the CEO of NWTF, and Jerry Martin, who worked for Bass Pro Shops there with Johnny Mars. And I remember when we went into Saudi Arabia and they saw that we were Americans, we literally had people come up, hug our neck. Like, I'm just a turkey hunter from Georgia. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this feels pretty awesome. Where I felt like it changed a little bit when we started getting to some of the different countries and going to these other different areas. But Saudi Arabia, it was amazing because obviously we kind of lit that up pretty quick and basically freed them pretty fast. But overall, when you look at the conflicts, have you had a chance to sit down and talk to some of the Vietnam veterans, specifically some of the Air Force pilots, to compare notes? Was there a lot of similarities in what the same missions were? Has that changed over time, or is still some of the fundamental just get in there and get it done the same?
So the fundamentals and the attitude of the fighter pilot hasn't changed since the dawn of aviation. We've done a really good job of passing down our traditions. Yeah, the dynamics in the war between like a Vietnam and an Iraq or Afghanistan, a lot different. Okay. I mean, those guys, on the daily were like, they were getting shot at by anti-aircraft artillery. There were surface-to-air missiles, there was MiGs in the air and that type of stuff. So they had a different defensive dynamic that they had to come up with and plan for that we did not. Okay. And so that adds a whole new level of just, awareness and planning and everything that needs to go into that, because you got to do things, by the numbers and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of times they were sitting there looking at their mission materials and stuff like that. And you're like, what the hell is this target right here? Like, we're really going there to do that with this and stuff. And those questions would come up and everything. The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I might say, was a little bit more dynamic in the sense in that we were being very reactive. Okay. So we not necessarily going out with a set of targets and we're going to go take these out and here's our ingress, egress, and that type of stuff. Man, it's just where stuff was popping off. And, you might be on the eastern border of Afghanistan for the first 2 hours of your flight, and you might be on the western border of Afghanistan for your last 4 to 6 hours.
You think a lot of that was just the availability of technology, of intel that you could get, or is that just the way the conflict?
I think that's just the way the conflict was, and looking at it, like, was there ever, Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm not talking about, the invasion into Iraq and stuff. I'm talking about as the war settled and the global war on terrorism took over and more the traditional, what people look back as the traditional global war on terrorism, there's not really front lines, right? There's battle areas and stuff, but these battle areas were in pockets everywhere. You could be up in the, the mountains of Afghanistan. You could be, down in the valley, or, in Iraq, you could be in the cities and stuff like that. It was dynamic in terms of the geography of each location and where you would end up. It just depended upon, who was fighting who
Exactly. And possibly, again, I know it's been a lot more removed. I don't know what you can and can't say, but a lot of times it was areas that just didn't exist. We don't know exactly where we're at. We're kind of lost, but we knew there was a bad guy over there, right? I mean, I'm sure that happens.
What is top secret? I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Your laugh answered it. But yeah, I'm so intrigued at the mindset and just, I don't know, that warrior mentality of what you got to do. And I've always, too, been interested from the standpoint from Afghanistan, where the war on terror started, to Iraq. Did you remember, was there a significant difference in the way you fought the two? Did it feel different?
Yeah. So I think that, yes, in fact, it's funny because I was just having this conversation the other day with a Navy SEAL buddy of mine. Mm-hmm. And we both said the same thing. Like his perspective, the ground war in Iraq and Afghanistan, totally different. Same thing with the air war portion of it. Afghanistan felt more sudden, dynamic. It seemed like everything was clicking off a lot quicker in a lot of different areas. There was times where Iraq felt like that because I was in Iraq in 2005 and 2007. 2007 was rough. That was during the height of the surge in Fallujah, okay, where the Marines are going in, they're kicking down doors and doing that type of stuff. That was a rough time. Okay, that was very sudden, very quick, very dynamic. There was a lot of Americans who paid the ultimate price during that surge and stuff. And so, but Afghanistan just seemed to me more consistently that way. Mm-hmm. There may be other fighter pilots and other operators and stuff like that who would disagree with me on that, but that was my experience with the two.
Right. And I often wonder too, like where Afghanistan, for sure, you're fighting terrorists, Iraq the same, but did it ever get to a point to where you're feeling like, okay, this feels a little bit more where the government's involved and you got a different technology. So your enemy could even be more suited. So you have to be a little bit even more strategic. Did those type conversations come up?
Yeah. I mean, I think, probably the best way I can answer that question is that, a lot of people might look at, the terrorists in Iraq or Afghanistan and stuff like that. These were not dumb people. Okay.
Smart guys.
They knew how to fight. Okay. And they knew how to fight on their land. And especially in Afghanistan, the one thing that we would always say is that here's a dynamic that you can't change for them. You can't make it suck anymore for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
They can they'll just go, hey man, I'll just go hang out in this cave for 2 years. I'll be fine. And stuff like that. Americans don't relate to that. Okay. No. And stuff. And so they were willing to do whatever it took, and in their eyes, they're going, this is my house. Okay. And you guys are coming into it. We obviously, technology, intel, the will of the fighting American and stuff like that, to me, that's always going to win the day for us. Okay. We didn't start this country by coming over here and like going, hey, let's establish a government and all this other stuff. Dude, we fought to make this happen. I mean, this country that we live in that is free right now and stuff like that. And so I still think that's the mindset of the American warrior that is not duplicated anywhere else.
I agree. I think the willpower is pretty amazing, and it's a different mentality. Like you said, you're talking about fighting a terrorist who thinks the infidels should die, and they also think if they do die, they got 7 virgins or however many virgins they have in heaven, and they did the right thing. So they're not afraid to die.
No, they're not cowards, and they now we may disagree with their motivations, okay, right, and stuff like that, and not share those perspectives and stuff like that. And I just recently watched it. There's a brand new documentary out on Netflix on Bin Laden, and my wife and I binged watched it last night. It's only 3 episodes. It is unbelievable,
dude. I want to see that. I saw that pop up. Yeah.
It is unbelievable how you walk through just the intelligence machine and everything that went into that. I mean, because we did not get to Bin Laden until 10 years after 9/11. 10 years.
I was looking for him the whole time.
Looking for him the entire time, but they walk through this whole thing all the way up to it. And then they have Rob O'Neill at the end who's talking about, the final days of going in there and getting him and stuff. And it was absolutely fascinating. But one of the things that I drew from that is like, man, there's great Americans out there. I mean, these people just never gave up and stuff. I mean, just for the sheer will of you attacked our country. And it's kind of like, you know, you fought with your brother and sister growing up and stuff like that. Like, I can hit my brother or my sister. Somebody else comes from the outside. You're like, that doesn't work. And they carried that mentality, which I thought was just super, super cool, because they were going to make sure that justice was done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that. And it reminds me, though, do you think it's safe to say that most Americans, I mean, good American civilian people who work hard, pay their taxes, still can't truly understand how good we all have it after you've been 7 combat missions and you sit down? And obviously I've noticed this, obviously, and I apologize to even the viewers and listeners that hear this, because I'm speaking out of ignorance, but I'm speaking from just completely having an opportunity to have you here in person to talk about these things and ask questions, which a lot of them are pretty simple and could even come across as uneducated. But at the same time, I've seen this because we do a lot of veterans hunts. We hunt with a lot of Purple Heart warriors from every military, a division out there. And I noticed when y'all huddle up, it's typically a different conversation than when one guy comes from the streets. Obviously, I notice in hunting is the quickest way to kind of get into the group, because when you're sitting around a bunch of veterans and you've been chasing elk in the mountains and maybe a Suburban and a cigar, and you can kind of get in on it and become in the club, even though they know you're not really worthy of hearing some of these stories to a degree. But do you think a lot of times that most Americans, I'm not talking about just the purple hair, mad at everything and just don't understand truly what it is to be American, but just how good it is when it comes to what these other people, like I said, you don't necessarily like their views, but you have to kind of respect who they are that you're fighting against. Even a terrorist, they're willing to fight for everything they believe in a faith-based situation. But in America, there's so little that we have to fight for at that level. Basically, we have income. We're trying to hopefully have monies for Applebee's and maybe a nice ribeye steak. And, but when it comes down to it, after I've really studied all historical facts of wars and different nations and different countries and different communist versus socialism versus capitalism, I don't know where you can find a better place, even though we have our own problems. But America still reigns the best, mainly because most of us have never had to bleed for really anything when it comes to somebody coming in and really trying to blow us up, shoot us. But I am afraid that how long will that last? Because there are enemies that's probably here now, and I wonder, will any of the civilians be ready? I don't know. I know that's a long-winded question.
But if you look at it, though, I mean, as long as we're going to serve the cause of freedom, right? I mean, Americans we're going to celebrate our 250th anniversary next year, and that's significant. But we're young as a country, and as long as we're serving that cause of freedom, there will always be the need to fight, because there's going to be somebody who's going to want to take it away from you, man. And so when I was at an event in Nashville just a couple of days ago, and they had the Marine Color Guard out there, and man, just love me some Marines. They got the coolest uniforms. I'm just going to throw that out there, and they're just always tight and put together. I was looking at these kids, and they're kids, okay? No, they're men, but I'm looking at them. I'm 58 years old. I'm a dad.
Right.
And looking at them, and I'm like, every single one of them are younger than my youngest kid right now. And guess what? Not a single one of them was alive when 9/11 happened. Not a single one of them.
That's hard when that's hard to think of.
It's 24 years ago, and you sit there and you look at that, and you're like, "Oh my God!" And it made my heart happy and stuff. When I looked at that, and I'm like, "There's still a willingness for young men and young women to raise their right hand and go serve their country," and that. I don't know. It's almost got a little bit, choked up.
Emotional,
looking at it, just going, man, it's not just a bunch of old guys out there, or they're grabbing the VFW because they can't find anybody to do stuff for, this event or anything. I mean, there's bona fide Marines out there, on this hot field, posting the colors and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, there's hope, man. There's hope.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It seems there's always the warriors come forward and despite politics, despite anything else, they're there to serve the countries, protect, the red, white, and blue, and really preserve our freedom. And it is amazing. And I've often wondered too, especially from a veteran standpoint, when you come home, obviously you were treated a lot different than your father was coming home from Vietnam. But I've often wondered, how hard is it for a true veteran that's went through, let's face it, hell? It ain't just, man, it was kind of sucky or tough. I mean, no, you go through hell anytime. I don't care if you train for it. When you have to, when you're ordered to take another human's life, whether it's drop a bomb or to go on a mission to where you got to come in and hit a target. And when you're successful, most of the time, success means, you took somebody out, and that alone. But then on top of that, many of you guys saw your brothers not only wounded really bad, but a lot of them, you saw them come back home on those big carriers that had, American flag draped over them. And so when you look at that and you get back home and you're having conversations, is it harder to tolerate the true ignorance? Or does it give you a sense of wealth to say, this is why I fought it, so they could still have this potential ignorant belief and they're free to say these things?
Yeah, I think, the dynamics in coming home were always a little bit weird. Like it got harder to leave and harder to come home the more deployments you did. I mean, at least that was my experience and stuff. And I can remember, and you would only have like this 72-hour, like 3-day transition process coming out of theater. And we would come out of Afghanistan, go into another country, spend a couple of days there and stuff, and then we would start getting back home. And in your mind, when you get back home, you're just like, you're out there. And I can remember I'm sitting here drinking a beer and cutting my damn lawn.
Right.
I'm like, shit, like, a week ago, I was freaking like laying waste to people and stuff like that. That's what's weird and stuff. And then you're coming home and like going and like, you feel almost a little bit fake and like, oh, honey, I love you, and hugging your kids and like, because you're just like, well, wait a minute, I was just this person over here. And now you kind of got to transition back out of that. And fortunately, I was able to do that every time coming home. And then there was, I probably ought to write a book one day on like, hey, here's a list of questions to not ask people who just got back from combat. Because I can remember we were at church of all places. This guy walks up to me and he's like, older gentleman, and he goes, hey, Colonel, how many of them did you kill? And I'm just like, I sat there and looked at him. He goes, we ought to just turn that place into a glass parking lot. I looked at him and I go, let me ask you a question. I go, have you ever killed anybody?
Exactly.
Like ever in your entire life?
Right.
He goes, no. And I go, don't ask me that stupid question again. And I turned around and walked away. I'm like, that's not questions that you ask. I mean, question that you ask is like, did your brothers come home? Nick, are you okay?
Yes.
That type of stuff. And but that kind of that bullish, like, man, just lay waste. And I'm like, no, that ain't a question to ask, man.
Exactly. And that same guy, not to knock him, because I'm sure that same question has been asked by a lot of innocent, fat, lazy, spoiled Americans, which I consider myself one of them. I mean, I never fought in combat. I had a chance to sit back and I was chasing turkeys, man. I was chasing deer. I was trying to figure out, was we going to eat chicken or steak, or maybe I was going to, go by and get fast food. I don't know. And I think most of Americans are, when y'all doing this dirty work to make sure that a certain regime or terrorists don't take hold, or for whatever reasons, whether politically it's agreed upon, we should be in a theater in a certain place or not. But at the end of the day, you're exactly right. I can't imagine that emotion, because it's heavy on you. But they're sitting there, all they was worried about was making it to the Kiwanis Club meeting in the Chamber of Commerce and making it to the Little League baseball game for the grandson possibly. But like, hey, how many did you kill? It's like, but the whole time you're in church, because obviously I'm sure in your mind, that probably has happened. and it's probably not a good place emotionally for you.
Yeah. Well,
even though it was your job.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and for him, I'm like, he probably was in his own mind coming from a good place because he's like, well, how should I talk to this person, or how should I ask this question? He did. I mean, I was the guy who said shit inside a church and stuff, talking to this guy. But I want to go back to something that you said too. And I do think, I mean this from the bottom of my heart and stuff like that. I mean, I did what I did because it's what I wanted to go do. I mean, I wanted to go be a fighter pilot and stuff like that. I don't look at myself as any better, more of a hero than any other man walking in the United States right now and stuff too. Brother, you built up an amazing business from the ground up, an awesome brand of bone collector. And I'll tell you this right now, some of the greatest patriots I know, which you're included in that, never wore the uniform, man. But you get back to us, you get back to the Folds of Honor. You've given me a platform, okay, to talk about this stuff. You don't do that. I don't get to do this. They don't get to hear about my dad. They don't get to hear about me. They don't get to hear about my awesome family and these amazing families that we serve at the Folds of Honor, brother. So, man, I salute you. I do. Because if it wasn't for guys like you, guys like me who are, kind of in my second chapter of my life, trying to take care of these families and stuff like that, brother, without successful people like you, we don't get to do what we're doing. So thank you.
Oh, well, first of all, you're welcome. And thank you in return. And that is a good, kind of a transition to talk about. Obviously you come home from all those theaters of war, and obviously you're in Colonel Rooney, who actually there, founder, I think, of the Folds of Honor.
Absolutely.
And obviously it's funny. There's so much great charity out there, but immediately when I kind of heard the story of Folds of Honor and what you guys are doing, and especially y'all's mission, and it was amazing. I'm like, man, these guys, not only they come from these dangerous places, but then they come home and immediately you're back into civilian life, which is a hell of a transition, because you are ready to crank up the jet, and like, what's next? You get home, and like I say, the biggest thing is arguing with your wife on where you're going to eat. It's like,
I never won those arguments.
No, I didn't either. Yeah. I didn't either. And I, take out the trash, sweetie. He's like, oh, I got it. But at the end of the day, man, the Folds of Honor has been an amazing organization that you guys have started, and for a lot of people maybe listen who don't know what the Folds of Honor is about, maybe kind of give them an explanation of, what it is in y'all's mission statement.
Yeah, you bet. So Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, our CEO and founder, my fellow fighter pilot brother, he started this amazing organization 17 years ago now, and where he witnessed the other side of war. He saw a flag draped coffin coming off a United Airline flight, and saw this man's little boy sitting there waiting on his daddy coming home. And in his mind, Lieutenant Colonel Dan, call him blessed or cursed in life. He's got 5 daughters, so you can imagine what his household is like and stuff. But what goes through his mind, he goes, man, something happens to me. What happens to them, and stuff. I mean, you're in the military, you're not getting rich. Okay. And by the way, so he started the Folds, above his garage, man. And you look at right now, through the 24-25 school year, we have put 62,000 scholarships out the door, 290 million. That's unbelievable.
Holy cow.
Unbelievable. This next class is going to be our biggest class ever. It's going to be 12,000 spouses and kids that we're sending to school. But Waddy, the scary number here is this. We had 22,000 qualified applicants. There's 10,000 that we can't send, okay? Our growth in terms of qualified applicants, okay, are grow about 25 to 40% a year. No business is growing 25 to 40% a year in revenue, and so it's hard to keep up, and it's hard sending out those no letters. So we stay in the fight each and every day, and to make sure that we can take care of these families. And for the audience who may not be totally familiar with this, we provide educational scholarships to the spouses and kids of military members and first responders who've either been killed or disabled. So we focus on education, focus on the family. Whatever your educational dream is, you want to go be a plumber, an electrician, an astronaut, you name it, we're going to support you. and make sure that you get through that. And the neat thing with this is no matter what you want to go do in life, okay, you got to learn something, right?
Correct.
Whether mom and daddy may have taught you and you come up in a family business or something like that, or you don't have that, you got to go do something. You got to go figure life out. And what is so cool now, Waddell, is seeing some of these kids now who have graduated and what they're going on to do. And a lot of it was a motivation of what happened to their parent and gone on. I mean, we have one kid out there he's a brain surgeon now. I can't even imagine, like, what do you do? Can you imagine how you get started in brain surgery?
Exactly.
And stuff. I mean, it was just fascinating to me. A lot of these kids have gone on to be in the military and do other type of things and stuff. And so, for us, in this country, man, we can argue about a lot of stuff. We can. But two things reign true. Okay. None of what we get to do happens outside of the context of freedom and safety. And I'm talking about our military and our first responders. And especially my first responders out there, they're new to the business for us. We've been supporting them for about 3 years now. 240 million times a year, 911 is called. That's a 911 call.
Nobody thinks of that stat.
6 seconds. And guess what, American? When these guys are showing up, when that cop is showing up to that wreck on the highway or that firefighter is showing up to your house, he's not sitting there evaluating your religion, color of your skin, or who you voted for. Yep. They're just kicking the door down and they're coming in. That is the most unifying message that this country could have right now. Sitting there taking a look at it and going, hey, we might disagree on a lot of stuff, but at least we can come together and celebrate our freedom and celebrate these first responders and looking at the military and the first responders and just going, wow, thank you. Thank you that I get to do what I get to do. Right. And thank you for your willingness to come at my worst moment.
That's staggering. Those stats, a lot of people don't look into, and you're right. When you first told me, it seemed like yesterday, but y'all was adding the first responders. What a great addition to the military men and women who sacrificed all and been disabled, because you're exactly right. I mean, a firefighter, he runs to the scene. He's not asking, was this a meth house that blew up? Right. Was this arson? Was this? It doesn't matter. You don't ask who's in there. Right. When somebody calls on a civil dispute and you have civil unrest, you come into a home, it doesn't matter who it is. They're coming to check, to protect. And so many times, a lot of those officers don't roll back out. They get shot. They get killed. You're pulling over people in the middle of the night. I can just only imagine, close to that border, and you don't know if you're pulling over a kingpin with the cartel that's got a truckload of, well, it probably wouldn't be a kingpin, it'd be a grunt, but you never know. Could just be, hey man, I was just going to tell you your tail light's out, and that's it. Walk to that car, it's over.
That's right.
So I can't imagine, and almost everyone, not everyone, but most of those men and women who do that have a wife or a husband.
Yep.
Many have kids. And they have a family, and when they're gone, who's there for them? We're going to stop for a quick break, but please don't go anywhere. We got so much to come.
Spandau Arms was founded with a simple idea. The best part of hunting isn't the gear, it's the memories. From the first rooster rise of the season in the tall grass to the last second opportunity on the target buck as sunset closes in. Spandau believes firearms should be built to perform, priced to be accessible, and designed to become an essential piece of your hunting story. Their lineup includes field-ready shotguns and precision-driven rifles built for hunters, competitors, and recreational shooters who know that quality and dependability matter more than the hype. Born from the experience of American hunters and crafted by generations of gunmakers, each Spandau firearm is built for real-world performance in the moments that matter. With your rifle attached by our patented Spartan MagnaSwitch system, rise up from behind the sagegrass, silently, quickly, stable, and ready to fire. The Spartan Springbok bipod and tripod deliver button-free instant position changes, always ready to provide a stable shooting platform. Find us at javelinbipod.com to see the system in action and purchase fulfilled direct to you from our Texas warehouse.
There's no national organization outside the folds of honor who's doing what we're doing for these first responder families. Okay. And undergirding them with the opportunity for not only the kids, but the spouse, to carry on, and like, does it fix everything? No, it never will. Okay. I promise you, every one of these kids and spouses who, lost a dad or husband or, wife or something like that would gladly give that scholarship back to have their loved one back at home. But the neat thing with this, Waddy, is it's not just education. And what these kids will tell you is this. They'll look at me, with tears in their eyes and go, thank you for not forgetting my dad, my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me a voice to talk about my hero, okay? The person that was so influential in my life, and continue to remind people, you know what? Hey, freedom, it ain't free, and it is never, ever going to be. And, and courtesy of the 1.2 million Americans who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country, do we get to have what we have today and stuff. But giving these kids and these spouses that platform and that voice, that feels so good and is such the right thing to do. And again, you want to take America for just a second and go, hey, turn off the news, turn down the white noise, just listen to this story for a second and stuff. And and if you can walk away from hearing those stories and still think that all the things that you're hating about and all this other stuff are so important, I promise you they're not.
Right. We're all humans. And you look at that, a family's a family, a kid's a kid.
That's right.
And like I say, it kind of helps you realize that no matter who we are, the potential of heartache, first of all, we're all going to have it.
Yep.
But in that case, tremendous heartache, because you never know. It could be a dad or mom who's a breadwinner, who knows the dynamics of that family. But when they're gone, that's half of the equation that makes that whole family work. And it's not just divorced. It's not there, or it's not physically able to provide the same support.
Right.
Or, whether it's in disabled or in death. And one thing that blew me away, obviously I've always had a soft, spot in my heart for giving back in philanthropy and in the right things. I'm obviously from restoration of the wild elk herd to turkey. You name it. But when you look at what y'all do, I've never seen, and I'm sure they're out there, but the amount of money y'all put toward the mission, it's crazy. What is that figure? Where are y'all at right now on the dollar that's given back?
Yeah. So, for when you look at our program expense ratio, it's at 92%. Okay. So that is 92% of our expenses are going directly to support our scholarship programs. That puts us in pretty rare air, makes you a top 1% charity in this country. And you can go check us out on Charity Navigator, GuideStar. They're the watchdogs out there. I love that we have organizations like that. We're transparent. You want to know what our financials are, everything else, they're on our website. We don't.
So basically 8% the business is run on, or in this case, the fundamental parts of
is operational cost.
Operational cost.
Yep.
What is around the average of a charity or a nonprofit?
I don't know either. And
it can't be that high.
Yeah,
if you're top 1%, obviously there's a lot.
You have to be a nonprofit for a period of time, and don't quote me on this. I think it's at least 7 years before you can even get a rating. And for a nonprofit, for us, number one, it is a standard that, Colonel Dan and I will not waver from. That is the standard. I'm like, we're going to do the right thing. Like, you work at Folds of Honor, you work. We're a charity, but we're not a charity, if you know what I mean. I'm like,
we work.
There's no freeloaders here.
Right.
And stuff too. And I may be the president, and that's a fancy title and stuff like that. But, I'm on the road 180 to 200 days a year fundraising and stuff. And so we're going to bring home the bacon and do all that stuff too. So whatever we got to do to go make that happen. And so we've established a culture and a mindset within the organization. And, and I think Dan would agree with me on this. It's that fighter pilot mindset. And that is just figure out a way to win. Mm-hmm. Just figure it out. There's a way to win. Just go figure out a way to win. And in a person with that mentality right there, you're going to work. You're not going to come up with excuses or anything else, because, at the end of the day, like I told you about, those 10,000 spouses and kids that we can support, to me, those are 10,000 sets of eyeballs looking up at me and going, hey, Colonel Nick, what kind of decision are you going to make so maybe my family could be taken care of next year?
I'm blown away at the work y'all do and the amount of staff y'all have to do it. I mean, you guys work. Y'all are grinding every day, and obviously, I know it's a labor of love because I've seen you. Even when my wife's grandfather was buried, he was a World War II veteran, and you came down and you helped orchestrate making sure we had all the salute, and they played taps, and it was amazing. And so, obviously, for that alone, you and the Folds help just organize that, because we once again, I mean, we're fat, lazy civilians who just, we're out here just trying to figure out where the next dinner is, and then we're looking into this, and you helped us with that. And so you came to his funeral, and so looking back and even having a chance to talk to Colonel Rooney and so many of the people that work there, it's become to me like family. Yep. And I'm so proud. Like, I'm so proud when we can, in any form or fashion, give back, because I know that, man, we had a chance. In my mind, I haven't had a chance to meet as many of those families you guys do day in and day out, but it's cool to go to bed at night knowing that, man, somebody through support was able to have an opportunity to go to school and remember their father or their mother. And especially when y'all moved it over to the first responders and the policemen and women, the firefighters, I don't know, man. I haven't found a better organization that gets me excited, and especially getting to know you guys and knowing that warrior spirit in you. So, man, just salute to what y'all have done. That's a hell of a stance of what y'all took and what y'all been able to give back.
Man, thank you very much. Yes, we're proud of the organization and stuff too. But and lastly, want to give you a big shout out too, because brother, it was you 4 years ago, man. You didn't know me from Adam. And you're like, I don't know who this Nick is, but send him to Utah for this elk hunt. And we've been good friends ever since. Brother, you launched me into the outdoor space and stuff like that and stuff. And so now, by association with you and the Bone Collector team and the credibility that they gave me to go fundraise in the outdoor space has been unbelievable. And, I can't even list off all the companies in my mind right now who have said yes to us, and in large part because of my association with you, not only as a good friend, but the financial support from the Bone Collector team, allowing us to be a part of your show and stuff. And I watch those shows. I told you, I just binge watched the last season, and I watch it all the way through until the very end. And then there's the Folds of Honor, and to do that for us, it carries us over to My Outdoor TV on the streaming, and you never lose sight of it. And you guys, makes me smile when I see social media. You got your Folds of Honor Bone Collector co-branded shirt on. Nick Munn has done an amazing job of wearing our gear and stuff like that. So yeah, brother, thank you. I mean, it's in large part to you that we are where we are in our fundraising, especially in the outdoor space and stuff. And I mean, my first conversation when I got to meet Kevin Van Dam was like, hey, man, I know Michael Waddell. I was like, he's a friend of mine. I got to go hunting with him and stuff like that. He's like, oh, man, I want to have Waddy on my show and all this other stuff. So it's just led to a lot of goodness, man. And we cut up. We have a great time and stuff like that. And that's all good, man. There's nothing says you can't have a good time and do good at the same time.
Oh, man, and vice versa. First of all, you're welcome. And for me, I've always been one of those kind of skeptical guys to give back. I mean, hell, I watched a documentary on Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker. You know what I'm saying?
God, please don't let that be a litmus test.
And so I think overall, and that's one reason too, even to talk about this and the charitable cause y'all set up, I think there is a lot of not naive, but a lot of skeptical people because they feel like they have been had. They've donated money and they wonder, does it really go toward what they really are hoping to do? And in my experience of really getting to know you, probably more than anybody else in the company or the organization, but everybody, I mean, Casey to Colonel Rooney, I mean, just great people. We've had a chance to share camp together. We've had a chance to hang out. We've had a chance to meet each other's families. We talk regularly. I mean, now, obviously, all we're talking about is what can we do to to figure out how to bring more attention to the folds and how do we get close to a darn bull elk? Those things drive us crazy too. And obviously, but for me, it's easy to support something when like when 92, cent of every dollar that you can figure out how to recommend, whether it's somebody who's got $20 to give or $200,000. And for me, I'm sitting here thinking all the time, like I said, there's still so many families that it's not about they don't qualify. It takes funds. It takes realistic money in an account to be able to support those people. And so at the end of the day, man, it's been a privilege. It's been awesome. And it's really been cool too. And speaking of elk, and speaking of hunting together, holy cow, I've seen the archery elk bug bite you to the point to where you're sitting at the campfire. And I know this because my wife has had these conversations with me when it comes to me, and we're having a good time. Everybody's loosey-goosey, and Colonel Nick's just sitting over there just staring at the fire. and I'm like, man, is Colonel Nick okay? Is something going on at home? Did they call him with bad news? And I'm like, Colonel, what's up, bro? I mean, you ain't yourself, man. What's going on? Like, swear to God, that my pen, if I'd have just had my pen, I had it on 50. If I could have just adjusted it almost like you turn into Uncle Rico. Like, I can still throw the football over the mountain, but if I'd have just had my sights set a little different, son, we'd be packing out an elk right now. And I've seen it just drive you crazy. Like,
it's so funny though. And I had 2 opportunities on the same day. Okay. So there's there's no excuses coming out of my mouth, but it's kind of one of those things. And if you're a bow hunter, you've been there.
Yeah.
You're in full draw and you're in that little devil on your shoulder is going, do it. And the angel is going, you ain't got this, buddy, and stuff. You're like, shut up, angel. I got this. And man, I flung that arrow and poor Dave, done such a great job calling his bull elk in, and then just sits there and watches me launch one over his back. And the elk was 35 yards away. And I just looked at him and like, oh, brother, I got nothing. You can just take me out here and shoot me right now. I don't even deserve to go back to camp and eat. Barry shouldn't even feed me tonight.
And the good news is you did have the story. Remember our Jack Link's buddy, he with beef jerky, he came in the same exact story.
Yeah, but he came in a lot more style than when I came in. Were you in the room when he came in? Because not only did he miss the elk, but the poor guy fell into a wallow after that.
That's right. He did fall into the wallow.
But like a true man, he just paraded in there in his tidy whities. And I'm like, dude, that is epic. I mean, if you had a mic, you should just drop it right now because that was cool.
I can tell you, man, archery hunting a bull elk, you can be a hero or a zero, and then it gets in your mind how bad you want to fill a tag with that archery gear. And I really do still believe out of all the animals and big game animals I've hunted, I still think it's the pinnacle of the scale when it comes to ranking. If you can get a bull elk, I'm not even saying it has to be a mature elk. I'm saying a bull elk in fair chase conditions with a bow and arrow, I think it's probably the most coveted and hardest to get animals out there.
Brother, I'm going to shoot the first high-pitched bull elk out there. I'm like, I don't care if he's prepubescent.
You're not a bull. You're an elk hunter. You're not. Yeah, a spike better. One of those velvet spikes.
Spike might be in trouble.
He might not be wondering.
Spike might be in trouble. But here's the good news out of this whole thing and stuff too. And I'm sure you do the same thing. You get there's the emotions of the moment. Of course, the adrenaline's going and all the other things. But when you get back and you can have like a sobering moment for a second, you just go, okay, let's walk through this stuff. Like, what do you need to change about how you approach bow hunting elk that will make me personally more successful and stuff? And I think I've got that. I think I know what that is now and stuff. And so, I promise I'll be tight when we get to camp in September.
Dude, I can't wait, man. We always start planning it. I know you mentioned KVD might be joining us. We basically, what we do, guys, is Colonel Nick and I started, we hunt with a good friend of ours, Daniel Richens out in Utah, R&K Outfitters.
R&K, yeah.
I call it RAN-K because it's R&K, and let's call it RAN-K.
RAN-K sounds good.
But But anyway, we go out there and we do cheat a little bit when it comes. We got old Barry who typically cooks for us. So we got a cooking camp. So for all the DIY guys, they'll be disappointed in us. But man, we put on still 8-10 miles a day. We're beating them mountains up, or they beat us up. And we have so much fun and have just always take the whole week.
Yep.
And this year we're talking about getting KVD, which I just put a Twitter post, or I guess it's X now. I said, man, I'm so glad I picture with us. I mean, I said, I never knew when I taught this man how to fish, he would go this far. And Kevin thought that was pretty funny. I did too, but obviously I didn't teach the man nothing on fishing, man. I still want to go fishing with him, but it's just fun. And I think that's what people don't realize that maybe listen who are not hunters. The camaraderie, the amount of time around camp. I mean, we love chasing elk, but we love just getting back and it's usually cold. You remember, you always got those first couple of days that you got a frost. Somewhere in there, we usually get some pretty cool weather and just a big old fire and just sitting around that campfire and, whether it's a cup of coffee or a glass of bourbon, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know what else why a man wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And, and I agree with you too. And it's been fun. I've had an opportunity to take some of our Folds team members, not to elk camp, but to, that never hunted before. I mean, a couple had never even shot a gun before. And they'll just tell you like, I didn't get it until now. They didn't get it, and it is. Yeah. And it's like as a hunter, I want to go kill a big buck. I want to go kill a big bull elk, all those things and stuff like that. But man, you got to enjoy everything about it. Like we're both landowners, man. I love prepping my property every year, going out and just cut limbs and fixing deer stands and doing all the other stuff. And, and for folks out there who haven't elk hunted before, listen, man, I'm a Georgia boy. I live in Oklahoma. I'm a white-tailed deer hunter. Okay. Yes. I would never consider myself like, hey man, I've made it in the Western world. I've had opportunity the last 4 years to be able to go do that and have had some success and stuff. But you don't have to be necessarily like, hey man, I got to put a 80-pound pack on and hump 30 miles back into the wherever and stuff like that. If you have opportunity out there and stuff like that, man, go do it. It's just, if you got to save up for 10 years, I promise you it's worth it.
It is. I see that all the time. And you talk to people, it's like, man, it must be nice to be able to go elk hunt. I can't afford that. And I honestly will say the first 2 elk hunts I did go on, I couldn't afford it. And like most Americans, we go in debt because in my mind, the one thing I know to be certain, I know I'm not going to live forever. And I remember that was one thing I remember reading in the Bible said the wages of sin is death. I remember being young and thinking you can translate that a lot of different ways, but what I translated that is that's the only certainty in life is that we're going to die. And it hit me even young thinking there's a lot of things I want to try to do if I have tomorrow, and you can't guarantee tomorrow. So I tell people all the time, a lot of things in life we can't afford or we can't figure it out, but sometimes you just got to make it happen. And there is a lot of different areas and ways you can get out of the state you live in and go on these adventures. There's great public ground. There's some private ground. A lot of times you hear the people talk about, well, I can't afford this or that, but no matter what you do, it's going to be an expense in it. You got to have a license. You got to have at least a tent. And even us old rednecks, we can live on Vienna sausage and beanie weenies, but in most cases, even that, you still got investment. So there's a lot of friends I grow up here in Georgia, and a lot of them are getting in their 70s. And I'm like, why are you not do it? Because you can't go back and do it when you're gone. And I remember it's like when I bought my first house, I remember I was looking at the paperwork and looking at it, and I went to different people that was my managers where I was working at the time. And I never forget one guy, he was Rod Hitton. He was the CEO at the time of the company I was working for. He just said, bro, just jump in there, do it. You'll figure it out. Yep. And I tell people now that same words he told me, I tell that about elk. I'm like, man, well, I got this saved up and I don't know. I'm like, man, jump in there and do it. How many times can you go to Panama City Beach for another week? Just talk to the family, figure it out, and take the family out west and go camp and go chase an elk and see that Colorado sky. And And again, that pertains to whitetails and everything else.
Yep.
So many times we make excuses and so many times we can't. But I've learned, I've got friends, man, I got buddies that they might smoke a cigarette or they might have a case of Natty Lights like every day. They always will have that. But I'm like, man, just maybe pull that out and figure out how to distance yourself there. And, you add it up, you'll be surprised how quick you can get there. So I say that even though I know people listening like, man, that's easy for him to say that. But, there's been many times in my life to where I didn't know how to figure out that. But I'm so glad I did, because now the friendships I've made, those experiences, and even though we do shows and we document these adventures and the fun and the good, the bad, the ugly of them, nothing will replace you personally doing it. And so, I've had a good time sharing camp with you, man. We've made some memories for sure, man.
We have, brother. We have. Yeah. You and the entire team are just been so good to us and so amazing. And then, we get to run each other at SHOT Show and NWTF and those type of things throughout the year and stuff. Then obviously stay in touch, phone, text, and doing that type of stuff. But yeah, brother, this is good, man. It's a good life.
We're just getting started. Hold on. We got a little bit more coming after this.
The Michael Waddell Podcast is brought to you by Outdoor Channel and My Outdoor TV. Watch Bone Collector and other great outdoor shows anytime, anywhere. Use promo code Waddell30 at myoutdoortv.com to try it free today.
How do you think hunting, from a standpoint of all you've seen in life, and one thing I've definitely become a better understanding, or maybe it's empathy, or as you meet different people. And one thing I've learned, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you name it, whatever it is, nobody is immune to the heartache, most of those heartaches that, especially us men, it's like we don't walk around and talking about it. You ask any man how they're doing, 90%, man, good. How you doing?
No, way good.
I mean, matter of fact, it would be shocking if you ask another man specifically, and again, you can ask a female, most of them will say it, but I think sometimes a woman is quicker to say, oh, it's terrible. Bobby has got off on the bottle and this and that. And but most men, it's an automatic reply. How are you doing? Doing great, man. How you doing? And in reality, might not be great.
Yep.
And in that, you think of all that you've been through, all the 7 campaigns you've been on. Obviously, there's got to be some baggage. There's got to be some situations. We've all been through situations where we lost loved ones. What has hunting meant to you? And what would you tell somebody about the therapeutic value of just spending time outside and hunting?
Yeah,
anything.
That's a great question. I think just a brief glimpse into it, when it's those times, and I'll just go like, I'm so, thankful to God that, I've got my own place that I can hunt on now, live on my own ranch and stuff like that. And there's times where you get up, early in the morning, obviously whitetail hunting, you're going to get in your deer stand when it's dark, get 30, 45 minutes before shooting light and stuff like that. And that ability just to sit there in the pure quiet, not flipping through your cell phone, not doing anything else, but just in the quiet and listening to the woods come alive. Hear the birds start chirping, squirrels chasing each other around. You start to hear something, big, stepping through the leaves in the woods and stuff like that. Man, it just like your problems just go away because you're not even thinking about them. You're being in the moment, right? And one of my, favorite quotes from one of my favorite songs is, you won't take those wasted moments to your grave and stuff like that. And think about all the time that we waste just doing stuff. If you want to feel bad about yourself, your iPhone will tell you every week, because they go, hey, here's how much screen time you had and how much time you spent on social media and all this other stuff that is not doing you any good. Okay. Man, those times, when you're in the woods like that, and honestly, Waddy, there's times I've just sat there and, and could have shot a deer and stuff like that I just took my bow and put it on the hook and just sat there and watched. Yeah. And just stuff. I mean, to me, there's no replacement for it and stuff. But man, you want to take it to the next level, just like we talked about. I mean, you hear a bull elk bugling in the dark. I mean, it is like, it's a combination of excitement and haunting at the same time.
Is
and stuff.
eerie.
And like, and guess what? You know, I don't get you. You're probably not going to hear those in Georgia, right? You're probably gonna have to go somewhere to hear that. But the point is, it's like, man, just get out and do it. Just try it. I promise you, you probably know somebody that does it. Everybody who's a hunter, somebody taught them how to do it. You know, your daddy probably took you and taught you and all that stuff. So, I mean, and I did that with my kids and stuff. And so, find somebody out there and just at least go try it one time, or to go sit with them and walk through, you know, what they do.
Oh, I mean, no doubt. As a matter of fact, you know, talking about the therapy, and especially as it applies to veterans, for me, and I've seen this just through what we do at Bone Collector, some of the most rewarding hunts that I've been part of is taking veterans hunting. In some cases, I would say in most cases, those veterans were hunters. But obviously they're dealing with a lot of situation. I mean, we're still going hunting with Vietnam veterans at Purple Heart Veterans. We work with an organization there, and it is so amazing to see the healing. I mean, you can see it from somebody who fought in a Vietnam War in 67, 68, and here you're hunting with them, and they got them a deer. I don't know. You build that campfire. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't found yet, and I'm not saying this because I am a hunter and I'm a pro hunter, but I haven't found anything more worthwhile, because you got your brothers, you got your sisters around a campfire, so you got your therapist.
Yep.
You got your sarcastic therapist, because our group text, you know, even including ours at times, it gets pretty tough. Like, you wouldn't think we're friends. I got a lot of group texts. If you open, it's like, these are friends. I'd hate to see their enemies, you know.
Jackson ain't here. We can talk about him.
Jackson Bishop, who works for Bone Collector, prime example. Oh my God, you know. But at the end of the day, you got all these people you can talk about, and you know what? That is the moments, to me, in camp, to where you're sitting around, it's like, man, you know, what are y'all doing on y'all's house, man? I'm in a bad way. I don't know what the hell me and Mildred are going to do, man. I can't afford my monthly payment. And then some guy's like, well, what are you doing? You know, the interest rate. I mean, you need to. Next thing you know, that's where it might have took a beer. It might have took, but it's amazing at the conversations I've had in elk camp or deer camp or just hunting, that it really is not even about who tags what. It's just a group of humans coming together, eating camp chili, having a good time, chasing an animal. That all of a sudden you will get into some conversations that are not at times deep. Like, my wife is sometimes will come and ask me, and it could be, you know, Cohen, our producer, like, well, man, is Cohen still dating that girl? Whatever. It's like, I don't know. Like, y'all was together 30 days. Y'all didn't talk about relationships. Like, no, we didn't. We talked about, you know, what it costs per month to buy a jet boat. And we talked about what it would cost to do this. We talked about how long it's going to take us to get this project done. And, you know, we talked about politics and certain things like that. And at the end of it, we ended up spent 2 days getting a bull off the side of a mountain together. Well, what'd you do the other 30 days? Built campfires, figured out what he was going to eat the next day.
Drank a little beer.
It drank a little beer. Totally. Yeah. It took some naps.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, man, it's amazing. And I think it translates, and I've seen it. I guess my long, you know, statement on that is the fact that I've seen it with a lot of our military heroes and veterans and really some heavy burdens hanging on them. I've seen hunting camp just bring back the energy, bring back life. I've seen tears. I've seen people get a deer, and then you're like, hey, man, don't you worry. Like, well, I think I'm just going to skull cap them. It's like, no, you ain't. We're going to mount that sucker for you. We're going to send them back.
Yep.
We're going to send it back to Alabama for you. And, man, just tears coming. And you got a grown man who's done things that he don't even want to talk about, that's hugging your neck, that's so thankful. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, this guy's thanking me. I've been doing, when he was over there doing these things that's honing him, this is what I was doing. So anyway, it's just been, I don't know. I can't say enough about hunting and the therapeutic value of it.
The therapeutic value of it too. And, you know, and just in summary, like that last part you talked about too, it gives guys, that sense of brotherhood again.
Yeah.
Whether it's around the campfire, it's just two of you in a ground blind or whatever it might be. And step two, there's, we're probably not going to like start out by, hey, Waddy, tell me how you're feeling. No, really, Waddy. Tell me how you're feeling.
Exactly.
That is not going to happen. We're probably going to give each other shit about something
100%.
and stuff like that. And stuff. But that's connection for guys. Right. And stuff like, there was literally nothing off limits in the fighter squadron. It didn't matter. Your race, your religion, I mean, everything. Your bald head like me. It didn't mean you were short, fat, whatever. In fact, the shortest guy in the squadron bar, the tallest guy would always take his mug and put it up on the top rung, and he would have to come in there and climb up on the counter to get his beer mug down to have a beer and stuff like that.
I love it.
But that's a brotherhood, man. And it's a sense of, safety and giving each other crap that's a safe zone, man. I mean, and stuff like that. And, like something really deep down was going on, man, you could be real with them.
I experienced that. And I grew up, obviously, I'm a Gen Xer. So I would say overall, we were raised not in that sanctuary it was hard. Nobody, I never saw any anti-bullying campaign. All I was told about a bully is like, you make sure he hits you first, son, and you uncork on his ass. It was a different, that's what my dad told me. Like, don't start nothing, but don't take nothing. That was what I was told. And so with that, you have that mentality. I mean, we didn't rat on anybody. It's just like, you figured it out. And it seemed like even back then, even certain situations, whether it was the superiors or the faculty, you might get a paddling, but somebody might get expelled. But most time, if you got in a fight, you got a whooping literally, and went back to class. Yep. And then you just had to explain to mom and dad if you was the one that started it or you was the one that was defending yourself. And you better have its story right, because more than likely, whether you was the bully or you was the one that was just the victim, you might get another whooping, So anyway, that was why things to deal with. So I say that in long form to say, overall, when I grew up, it was always sarcastic and hard. But the first time I remember really being with soldiers was when I did go to in 2011, we flew into Germany and we went to the hospital, and where all the soldiers there went when they were really bad hurt. And luckily when we were there wasn't but a handful of people that was in the rooms. So that was good, because we had gotten a briefing that there was times that was overflowing, depending on the what was happening in theater. But I remember in particular, we met up and there was one particular soldier visiting his friends that was there. And he had been in an IED explosion. He survived barely. I mean, by the grace of God, he survived, but he was really blown up. So our group had a chance to go into the room while this other soldier, he was just walking in basically with us. And we're like, hey, man, what's going on? This guy wasn't a hunter. He was, and I remember we walked in there and this guy was pretty banged up, his friend. And it was like, my God. And the first thing he said, my God, you was ugly before, but you look like shit. And I remember the guy was immediately from the hospital bed. I can still whoop your ass. And dude, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, look at this. But they were brothers, dude.
Absolutely.
And it just blew me away. And man, when he said that, I almost got emotional because I knew exactly where it was coming from.
Yep.
I knew exactly where it's coming. This guy was laying in the bed in the most vulnerable. Obviously, there's nothing he could do. His friend's in great shape. Don't have a scar on him outside of emotional baggage he's been bringing, because I'm sure he was there with him when it happened. And I don't know, it hit me hard because I remember and by the end of it, obviously there was that moment where he was right in his ear and I don't know what he was saying, and you could see them both watered eyes. And I remember thinking, holy cow, what some badasses. These dudes have seen it all. And here it is in his lowest moment. He still had to kick him out of just showing that love. And I don't know, man. I just, it was amazing.
So you develop a really cool, sick sense of humor
yes.
in the military. and stuff. And but it's a defense mechanism too, right? Because like I said, this guy is not going to go into his buddy and like run in there and collapse on him and start crying and stuff like that. So his defense mechanism is going to walk in and give him shit. I had a JTAC buddy of mine. JTACs are the guys on the ground who call in strikes for us and stuff like that. Got hit by IED, got his leg blown off and stuff, and had some arm damage. So this dude, like on a weekly basis, would send me pictures of his chopped off fingers because they were like trying to see how much of his hand they could save. But they're limp. It was like I remember when I got the picture of his middle finger. He's like, "Hey, you want this?" I'm like, "Nah, brother, I'm good." He just stick it in the freezer for right now. It'll keep. But you're just like, I mean, you can't make that. I mean, who does that? And here's a guy lost his leg, is losing, fingers off of one of his hands and stuff. And then like every time the surgeon had, we got to take that piece off. He just click, send it to me and text it.
Just send it to you.
Yeah.
Holy cow, man. It's amazing. I would assume it's almost like like you said, it is like a locker room. But even growing up playing sports, I remember visiting a few buddies and you always like, dude, man, hope you're doing well. And all that came. But I don't know. I saw that. And I remember that was just one of the moments that I had a chance to experience that. Cause I'm not, most people don't get a chance to see that, but there's a sick love that comes with that. And I just was, I was intrigued. I don't think a lot of people get a chance to understand that and see that. I remember the soldier that was laying in the bed, he said, when he's told him, he said, "Damn, you're really ugly now." And he said, "I could still pull more than you, and they were just, it was just like you could just tell he was so happy to see him and so glad somebody was in there just giving him the sarcasm. It was like he was right back there. And, I don't know, man. I got really choked up because this guy was banged up, and I obviously don't know how he's doing now. I'm sure he made a full recovery. I'd pray he did, but I don't know, man. It was just really real and really cool, and all that hit me the whole time I was there is people back home don't completely understand. We can only try to respect that time away from home on those combat missions and try to understand. And we're sitting here and we're flipping to the news stations and we're trying to figure out, what's right, what's wrong. But soldiers don't really have that option. You got commands and you got duties and you go do it, whether it's flying a plane or whether it's marching into fire. And at the end of the day, you don't know how it's going to turn out. I can't imagine the feeling, even what you felt, as well as even some of the Vietnam vets still feel when they see a documentary when they was evacuating. I think it was, and everything getting out of there and closing down the embassy in Vietnam. I think it was in Saigon, and all that was just unfolding, or the same emotion that was going down when they evacuated Iraq. And people literally, if anything, to me, whether people agree or disagree in any of the campaigns or any of the wars, one thing it showed me from a civilian type of humanity, they had to have or need somebody to fight for them, because you would not literally be throwing yourself and grabbing hope to a strut of a helicopter knowing you can't hold on and you're going to fall off to leave a situation that that it's not going to be good. You would be somebody over in Afghanistan or Iraq getting on a plane to get up into the landing gear to think you're going to make it all the way back home to America or wherever the next stop was, if it wasn't bad and they wasn't bad people over there. So I don't know. It's just all that's fascinating to me. But the American soldier, I don't know. It doesn't matter how big the fire is. You just walk right into it if called to do it.
That's right. I mean, our God rest his soul, Toby Keith had it right, man. He goes, "We'll put a boot in your ass." That's right. That's right.
God, I love that. And speaking of that, I know we're kind of coming close to the end. If somebody wanted to immediately just say, "Man, I'd like to support Folds of Honor," because obviously I understand the mission or dig more into the mission, where would you lead somebody to go to?
Man, go to foldsofhonor.org. Okay, super simple. So, we talked a lot about fighter pilot stuff. So become a Folds of Honor wingman. Okay. I mean, that's the guy who's, flying on your wing, who's got your six and doing all this stuff. It's $13 a month, Waddy. Y'all probably spent more at Starbucks this morning. And $13 a month. And man, we're going to keep you informed what's going on with these families. We tell you how we spend the money. And the neat thing here is this: a lot of people are probably going, man, 13, that's a weird number. And, you see the flag, maybe you can see it on my hat here. It takes exactly 13 folds to bring it to that iconic triangle shape of freedom. And a lot of people might go, well, man, $13 doesn't make a difference. Why can you imagine if we had 1 million people giving us $13 a month? That's the difference.
That fulfills
and stuff. And so it's a price point. Anybody can get into the fight with us. So become a Folds of Honor wingman today at foldsofhonor.org.
That's amazing. Well, this sure has been a pleasure seeing you and talking to you, buddy. And we can
amen, brother,
reminisce more and figure out how to get close to one of those big bull elk, because we're going to September. And I'm excited. We can see if Kevin Van Dam, maybe he can handle a bow like he handles that fishing rod.
He might bring his fishing rod, because we could fish there too. Maybe y'all could do a little competition, see what happens.
I know it. I might hunt around him. I don't know if I want to fish around that guy, dude. I've seen that guy do some stuff that's just crazy, man. He's got some YouTube videos that's just wicked,
Well, that's good. But brother, this was fun. I bet there's tequila on the second floor, isn't there?
I promise you there is. And if I know my wife, she's probably, well, I don't know if she has. She might be preoccupied. I think her little niece and nephew's down, so she might be up there knee deep in form.
I need to go up and
serious.
Get a hug.
She looks forward to seeing you, buddy. Glad you're here, Colonel Nick.
Thanks
for all you do and whole Folds of Honor, and look forward to many more adventures with you, buddy.
Amen.